everyone. Welcome to Monday. Welcome to First Things First. I'm Jenna Wolfe. That's the Hall of Famer Cris Carter. This is Nick Wright right here. First off, congratulations to Sam. What?
Yes.
I want to
go
say
ahead,
Sam
please.
Pepper. Our producer has been gone for weeks and weeks and weeks. We've been holding our breath while he practiced being a first-time dad.
Yes.
He succeeded, so he came back.
Congrats. Pep, now the third smartest member of his family, which is his rightful place.
I didn't say that, Pepper.
It's great to have you back, Pep. Absolutely. Should be the best show we've done in at least 72 hours.
What are you laughing at over there?
I thought you were congratulating us for surviving the weekend with that heat.
Oh,
it had to be 200 degrees here in New York City. If you survive, congratulations.
And it was so hot, world. Jenna had to cheat on her diet. She ate like 3 raspberries, 2 blueberries.
2 raspberries and a blueberry.
Lord.
That story
6
travels
Oreos,
fast. That's not
couple
what I had.
Rolos.
No sugar this month. Big Monday show for you today. The Lakers may have gotten played by Kawhi. Brett Favre's got some high praise for a pair of young quarterbacks. But we are going to start in Kansas City with the latest from Tyreek Hill. The Chiefs wide receiver will rejoin the team. This after the NFL determined he will not be disciplined or suspended following an investigation into allegations of child abuse. The NFL saying he did not violate the league's personal conduct policy. His teammate Travis Kelce said, quote, "We're just happy to get our guy back." CC, we'll start with you. A lot to get here. Whether or not you agree with the NFL's decision, Tyreek Hill is back. And does that now put the Chiefs on track for a Super Bowl run, having him back in the fold?
I mean, what would we be saying if some of the best wide receivers, if Julio Jones, if Michael Thomas, if they were questionable for the beginning of the season and then they were ruled to be eligible for the first game? We'd be like, wow, it's going to be exciting to see, because those are the most exciting offenses that we have. In this new era, we're going to be throwing the ball 65% of the time. You need a guy, everyone except New England, like Tyreek Hill, because he does so much for the running game, because he adds explosive plays through the running game, the threat. Anytime they put him in motion, how they utilize him, the deep threat, the best I would believe in pro football now. And I'm going to tell you, I had a lot of questions about his overall ability as a wide receiver, because we had not seen the size, speed combination body type go from being track speed to being an excellent football player. Maybe a special teams player, return some kicks, return some punts, run some reverses, specialty plays like that. But to be an elite wide receiver, I got to give it to him. Man, he has done the work. He runs all different types of routes in the route tree. He can play in the slot. He can play outside the numbers. As I mentioned before, you can give him the ball out of the backfield. So he's a phenomenal player. And what he does for Travis Kelce and other receivers in this offense, given that he's coached by Andy Reid and that he's got the best young quarterback in the NFL in Patty Mahomes, yes, they should have Super Bowl aspirations. Last year came up a little bit short to the Super Bowl champs, New England Patriots. But, yes, with Tyreek Hill back with that Kansas City offense, this should be the best offense in the NFL this year.
And listen, from a football perspective, you cannot overstate his impact and what a deadly combination Mahomes and Tyreek Hill were last year and project to be this year. He was top 4 in the NFL in every major receiving category, touchdowns, yards, and yards per catch. The best pass-catching duo in football. With respect to Odell and Jarvis, with respect to Julio and Ridley, is Tyreek Hill and Travis Kelce. It's the best tight end in the NFL and either the best wide receiver or just best deep threat wide receiver in the league. The Chiefs also, because they didn't know Tyreek was going to be there, moved up in the draft to draft McCole Hardman, who ran a 4.3, who's projects similarly as Tyreek Hill. So they've got in their offense Tyreek, who runs a 4.2, Hardman runs a 4.3, Watkins, who runs a 4.4, their running back runs a 4.4, Damian Williams, and then Travis Kelce, who I believe, with Gronk now retired, is the best, with respect to George Kittle, the best receiver, or the best tight end in the NFL.
Even before Gronk retired. That last year, Travis Kelce, yes, he had already ascended and taken over that. Yes.
So, listen, for the Chiefs, he's incredibly valuable. And I'm sure they're glad they have him back. And I'm from Kansas City. And you guys joke with me about how much I care about this team. You know, if I have rooting interest, it is for this team. But I don't feel good about the fact that he hasn't been penalized. And I know you and I talked about it before the show. It feels uncomfortable that we are talking about the football
stuff,
because it's so impossible to me that he didn't get penalized for anything that happened this offseason.
Whether or not you feel like a crime was committed, there was enough there where it felt like it violated the league's policy on domestic abuse, on threats, on anything like that. I'm just curious what your reaction was, CC, to how the league handled this, and even as a teammate, how you would handle having Tyreek back in the locker room.
Well, a number of things to address, and both of you do have legitimate concerns for different reasons. Jenna, in conversating with you, there's a number of things that aren't comfortable. The safety of his fiance, the threat that he made on that audio recording right there, that should have been dealt with. He should have been at least suspended for a game just for that. And moving forward, like, is she safe? Because she was abused in the past. And a lot of the reason her lack of helping is typical domestic violence things, that they're not going to cooperate. So how is the everyday life for them? Yes, he's going to go on to be an NFL star, but what's the safety of his fiance and the safety of that child? There was a broken bone. And a lot of people say, well, what happened to Adrian Peterson? What happened to Tyreek Hill? What's the difference? Well, there's a couple of differences. Number one difference was Tyreek Hill, he didn't admit to being part of that broken bone.
Right.
Adrian Peterson said that he did what occurred to this kid, but the conflict there was, I'm going to raise my kid a certain type of way, and you might have a difference with that. So both of you have legitimate reasons that why he wasn't penalized, and you're concerned moving forward. Even if he was suspended, there would be concern for the child moving forward and for the potential for his spouse moving forward.
Well,
Nick.
so here's the thing. This is what happened to that little boy. There's only 3 people in the world that know, and maybe only 2, but the mother, Tyreek, and the little boy. And that is complex. I listened to the initial audio recording, then I listened to the longer audio recording. I also, a young man that I actually hired in Kansas City is the one that released the longer form one. And so I've been talking with him throughout this. The broken bone for the little boy, as awful as it is not a black and white situation. And I totally understand why the NFL, much like the Johnson County District Attorney's Office, might have a gut feeling on what happened.
But no one actually has any evidence to who committed that crime.
And doesn't feel comfortable penalizing, either from a legal perspective or from a football perspective, for the little boy's broken arm, as tragic as that situation could be. But no one disputes, including Tyreek Hill and his attorney, that he is on that audio recording saying, "You should be terrified of me too," B-word, to Crystal Espinal. And that is arguably suspendable in a vacuum. It is certainly suspendable when you add the context of, this is a woman that Tyreek Hill has pled guilty to strangling and punching, albeit 5 years ago.
Sure.
And so it is vexing to me why the NFL did not say, while we have not determined what happened to the child, given Tyreek Hill's history, given that our personal conduct policy says threats can be suspendable in a domestic violence context, Tyreek Hill's going to have to sit out for a couple games. I don't think anyone would have complained.
Would have had an
I don't think
issue
anyone,
with that.
and I think people would have understood, okay, if he broke the kid's arm, he should be out of the league, but we don't know if he did. The DA's office doesn't know what he did. But Tyreek is not saying, that's not me on the recording. That recording's edited. He said his lawyer said, listen, it was a bad comment, he didn't mean it. Okay. But
still a threat.
It's still a threat. And in my mind, it's still suspendable, and that's the part that I don't understand why the NFL didn't act on.
And the people who might want to criticize the NFL and Andy Reid is going to be a coach that's always going to give guys second and third chances. And the NFL, for 100 years, has always been a league of second and third chances. This is not the NBA. This is not the NHL. This is not Major League Baseball. The group of athletes and what they're going to do to them is going to be a little bit different. And it seems like, Jenna, in conversating with you a couple of years ago, they came out really hard on the domestic violence issue, suspending guys left and right. Now it seems like their style is more of a Mayweather, going to just punch, not going to lay any haymakers, and going to kind of be on the more careful side of things compared to when they initially changed the domestic violence issue.
It's a tough issue. All right, we'll talk more about this coming up. But on the other side, let's talk some basketball. Did Kawhi Leonard intentionally mislead the Lakers? That's next on FS1. You can always check us out on the Fox Sports channel on SiriusXM. We'll be right back. Welcome back. We'll get to the Lakers and whether they felt snubbed by Kawhi in a second.
This is amazing.
But first, Harry Kane, watch this, latching onto Lucas Moore's short pass, launches a shot high for the Juventus goal.
I mean, it's 2-2 in the 93rd minute. And this is one hell of a way to start the Premier League season. Harry Kane from midfield. Why you all the way out there, goalkeeper? You going home with that L. That was spectacular.
All right, hold on. LA Galaxy, LAFC. Zlatan Ibrahimovic showing off the nice touch before blasting one off his left foot here.
It doesn't matter. European League, MLS,
boom,
anywhere. You won't find one better than that.
No, and Zlatan is the best player in MLS, arguably. I think is a hat trick for him. He's one of the guys that have come over from Europe, not on his last legs. Maybe not quite to the Premier League standard, but MLS, he's crushing folks, man.
Great rivalry.
You got to know soccer when you got a haircut like that.
Oh, absolutely.
Mets and Giants. Jeff McNeil making a nice jumping grab in the right field corner. Thought you'd like this,
dead.
Oh, come on, man. He's a major leaguer.
Oh, he died.
Now, that was like a...
Stop saying that.
That was like maybe an 8. That's not Hall of Fame hands, but because it's the Mets, you got to make it like 11 on the scale so we can get him in the show.
Did you say Jeff McNeil?
Yeah.
Ain't he a second baseman? What's he doing out there?
We got one of their crazy fans on staff, and we got this clip in there just...
Man.
That fan just got back. Big 3 action. Brandon
stop.
Rush dropping Ricky Davis. And then the tray.
Brandon Rush. Now, Brandon Rush and I had some battles in high school. Look it up, see? True story. Kansas City, Missouri. Brandon Rush, the younger brother of Kareem and Jerron Rush, went to the University of Kansas, but before that, he had to get through me on those blacktops of Kansas City.
Look it up, see, he said.
Look it up.
Look it up.
B. Rush, man.
Go on to Wikipedia. Look it up.
He's a righty. His brother's lefties.
Yeah, he was All-American in high school.
Mm-hmm.
Moving on.
I locked him up, though, see.
Hey,
true story. Look it up.
Is that before or after you threw your shoulder out?
Look it up. Let's not talk about my career-ending injury.
As Kawhi Leonard settles into life as a Clipper, new reports surfacing now that the Lakers are a little disgruntled over how his decision went down. They reportedly felt they got played by Kawhi in free agency and that he never had any true intentions of signing with them. Nick, Kawhi spurning the Lakers, is that more about the Lakers or that the allure of playing with LeBron has perhaps worn off a little?
Listen, I think this has a lot to do with LeBron, but not in the way it's being positioned. I think Kawhi understood something that Kevin Durant didn't understand a few years ago, which is if you are in discussion as the best player in the world, if you then team up with someone else in that discussion, that minimizes your ability to prove who you are in this league. And so I don't think the Lakers got played. I think Kawhi had a plan, which was, I want to get to the Clippers to compete with LeBron and Anthony Davis, not to create this big three, but I am not doing it alone. And so he saw how free agency went, and the Clippers didn't sign any star. And then he met with Paul George and said, force your way to the Clippers. But I believe that if the Clippers struck out on that, if the Oklahoma City had just said, we're not trading him. He just signed a new deal. He's got 2 years plus an option left. We're not trading him. And the Raptors were unable to trade for Paul George or someone similar. That Kawhi maybe begrudgingly, but Kawhi would have signed with the Lakers because he wasn't going to go to the Clippers with no one. And I don't think he was going to go back to Toronto without another star and additional piece than what they had last year. So I don't think the Lakers got played. But I think that Kawhi, and Chris, you can tell me if you disagree, I think Kawhi made the decision, I want to compete against LeBron and have the ability to win a championship in that manner rather than team up with LeBron and have people look at it similar to Kevin Durant joining the Golden State Warriors a few years ago.
Well, I don't know if Kawhi looked at it that way, but I do know that once Anthony Davis went to the Lakers, Kawhi was trying to get to the Clippers. But once Anthony Davis went there, that was probably going to be a fallback plan in case he didn't have to go to Toronto. Now, he would have went to Toronto on a short deal because he is very, very comfortable there. And you can see through all the reports that they even tried to work a deal as far as bringing someone else to Toronto. Now, once he talks to Paul George, once Paul George makes those demands and the Clippers do what Kawhi asked, the Clippers were the front runner from the beginning because he had confidence in their staff, their owner, and the coach. And that was developed over the last couple years. LeBron being there, I don't think as much as LeBron, but Anthony Davis and them creating a super team. Kawhi did realize, though, you do need another player. I'm not trying to do what I did last year, and he made the best decision, especially given that the Clippers don't trade for George. It becomes between, do I sign with the Lakers or do I go back to Toronto? I don't think he would have gone back to Toronto if they couldn't have added another player. He would have taken which he did the short deal, signed there in Los Angeles, and see what happened in 2 years.
But, Nick, the Lakers wouldn't have done anything different. They played it out exactly how they were going to play it out. They were going to wait for Kawhi. We realized early on they were going to bypass everyone and just wait for him to make his decision.
Well, where they would have done it different is if they knew they were not definitively, if they were actually 0% to get Kawhi, they would have been more active earlier in free agency. But I don't believe they were 0%. Listen, there's also reports out of Toronto that they don't love how Kawhi handled this. Listen, Kawhi handled this the way he's entitled to. And it would be, to me, this would be a very different story if he had signed with the Clippers a week into free agency with them not having done the Paul George deal. If it was the team that they had the first day of free agency and he's drawing it out and Toronto's kind of held hostage a bit, the Lakers certainly, then it would look like, oh, he was really trying to undercut the Lakers' ability to put together their team. But he was waiting for not only a domino to fall, but a domino to fall that took a lot of machinations, that took two teams getting together, agreeing on a trade, the likes of which we've never seen. We've never seen 7 first-round picks involved in a trade for a player who signed a contract the year before. It was absolutely on the board when Kawhi went to the Clippers and said, I'll sign if you trade for Paul George, that the Clippers were going to have to come back to him and say, we couldn't. We tried, like, what else can we do? But we weren't able to get it done. So I don't think that Kawhi and Cris kept hearing all 3 teams are in it.
Yes.
Right? At no point did they tell you on or off the record, listen, you can't say this, but this team's out. And
even when other people were saying that, and it was being reported that the Clippers were no longer in the mix.
Right, and I believe one of the biggest problems, and this is something with the Lakers we have to watch moving forward, because people thought, well, if they meet with Magic Johnson because they requested it, that will help the Lakers. That didn't help the Lakers. And the messages that were being sent out there, the Lakers were listening to that. They thought it was a done deal. They thought they had Kawhi. But I can assure you this, there was only one team, and that was the Clippers, that they said, if you do this, we will sign with you. They didn't tell Toronto, hey, so if you guys do this, you make this trade, we'll sign with you. They didn't tell the Lakers, if you guys hold off, I'll sign with you. The Clippers. And it was the Paul George. If you guys make this, I've talked to Paul. If you guys make this trade right here, I'll sign with the Clippers, and they were able to get the deal done.
The Lakers did pretty well for having waited that long, for not getting Kawhi. We all assumed they'd get no one. They ended up putting together a nice little team.
Well, and it should be noted, the top free agent, they did end up getting Danny Green. What did he say when he was asked about it? He said, well, the opportunity to play with LeBron and Anthony Davis. You look at some of the comments Boogie Cousins has made. Like, the idea that, I mean, the people that have signed with the Lakers have made it very clear that the allure of playing with LeBron still exists. Now, all of that, and me saying Kawhi and LeBron competing for best player in the world title, that all assumes LeBron's going to have the best year 17 anyone in league history's ever had. We've only had 3 guys in league history even average 20 points a game in a year 17. It's Kobe, Kareem, and Karl Malone. So that's the level of standard we are expecting for LeBron this season. We'll see if he can do it. But I think for Kawhi it was about competition, getting to LA, and not latching on with someone else instead of creating his own thing. And that's exactly what he did by going with the Clippers and getting Paul George to come with him. All
right, we'll take a break. The other big team out west, the Rockets. How much is James Harden willing to sacrifice in Houston? Hear from him next on First Things First. On Saturday, the NASCAR Gander Outdoors Truck Series returns to Fox. Catch the action Saturday, 12:30 Eastern on Fox and anywhere on the Fox Sports app. Oh, you know what time it is, CC. It is time for us to go viral. Thought you'd like this. Antonio Brown's insane workout, catching bricks midair, all while wearing, not sneakers, loafers.
Oh, some Versace loafers, too, now.
Well, something. You
Those about
that.
$1,400.
I didn't pick that up. This might look familiar with our very own Cris using the same method to help train Odell Beckham Jr. a few years back. How does this help, CC?
Man, I learned this from Jerry Rice. Jerry Rice's dad used to be a
Bricklayer.
Right? Used to throw them off the roof. Jerry used to catch them. So now you do these little drills. They help with your overall dexterity, make all your fingers, your grip pressure. So all your grip, because typically when you're catching the ball, you're catching with all your fingers. I love this drill right here. The Vikings, they honored me by, I had one of these bricks, and I used to do this drill. They put one of these bricks in front of their new stadium.
Oh, cool.
And they have one that it's all in the hands.
And I would imagine.
I have it in my office. I wish you guys would have told me. I'd have brought it down from my office.
Could you still do it?
Come on, man. Stop playing.
Stop playing, Nick.
Come on. That's the reason why we got this thing
All right, this time tomorrow, we'll bring that brick down from the office. Let's do it. You made me do jumping jacks on Friday.
If I can't do that, I'll switch careers with you. I'll go on radio, and then you can get somebody to get my
Okay,
play.
no problem. Deal.
Yeah,
All right, lock it in,
Fox
guys.
going to go for that, but
No
we'll
problem.
see.
We'll figure it out.
Time for stories to start your morning.
brick
This
on
morning
your
we're
head.
sponsored by Gillette Clear Joe. Falcons wideout Julio Jones reported to training camp on Sunday. Jones wants a new deal, but still has 2 years left on his current contract. He said, quote, Mr. Blank gave me his word. I'm not holding out. See, how important is it for the Falcons to keep Julio happy?
Oh, you don't have to worry. Julio's going to be happy. Arthur Blank, worth $5 billion. That's the reason why Julio tells his teammates, tells the fans, don't worry. Mr. Blank's going to get it done. Every promise he's made to Julio, he's been able to fulfill those promises. They love Julio there in Atlanta. Yes, he will be happy, and a Falcon, he'll be there. They'll get the deal done.
This is the ideal relationship between owner, team superstar, and most teams don't have this, where the owner can, a handshake agreement. Listen, we don't have it done now. I give you my word it will get done. Let's not have any distractions. You go play, we'll take care of it. If you can believe in that, if you can have the faith that they're not going to renege on that deal, this is perfect. So Julio will get paid sometime during the year, extend him long term, because right now his salary has been passed up by a half dozen receivers who are not as good.
Only
as
other
him.
receiver has that type of relationship with the owner is Larry Fitzgerald with the Bidwell family there in Arizona.
Absolutely.
All right, on to the NBA now. Despite all the stories of discontent in the Rockets locker room, James Harden claims that he's good with Chris Paul, says reports of a feud between the two are, quote, false talk. Nick, what do you make of this?
I think maybe the reports were somewhat exaggerated, but obviously the relationship had run its course on the court. Doesn't mean they dislike each other. It doesn't mean that if State Farm says, hey, we want to do another round of ads, want to get you guys together, that they're going to be like The Rock and Vin Diesel. I don't want to see each other on set. No, it's not that. I think professionally, they might not want to work together anymore, but personally, I believe there's no beef there. So I understand what Harden is saying.
Well, let me just tell you, I've been on a few teams. And if I don't want to be with you at work, I don't want to be with you after work. I don't think there'll be any more State Farm commercials there, Nick, right? All right, this is it, man. If Kobe and Shaq hadn't won championships, we wouldn't have ever heard the truth about them, how much they used to go at each other. Shaq sat right here. All that stuff was true, all right? In a situation like this, we don't hear about teammates not liking each other in pro sports. There's a lot of truth to this. State Farm thing, Chris Paul's like, that's my thing. That's not James Harden thing. I'll be shocked if he's in this year's edition.
All right. Kyle Korver agreed to a one-year deal to join the Milwaukee Bucks. Korver, known for his three-point prowess. How much is he well known for that? Well, over the last 3 seasons, he's shot a higher percentage from deep than Steph Curry, Klay Thompson, and J.J. Redick. Nick, do you like the signing?
Oh, it's a great signing for all parties. Kyle Korver, who's been in the league forever, one of the elder statesmen, but can still shoot it as well as anybody in basketball, and 60% of his career points have come from the three-point line. I mean, it's basically all he does. Spaces the court even further for Giannis and that team. Great fit. Great job by Milwaukee. Great decision by Korver.
Great locker room guy. You can believe that Giannis will be like a sponge as far as his shooting information. That's the way LeBron was. And I love the fact that, man, let's put some shooters around our star. We know how he plays. He's only going to get better if we space the court. They did a great job last season. It's going to be even better. Look for Giannis to try to repeat that MVP performance.
And you make a great point. Korver helped LeBron with his free throw shooting when they were there. I wonder if he can do the same for Giannis.
Two-time NBA champ Michael Thompson had some interesting comments about his son, Klay Thompson, who's recovering and rehabbing from a torn ACL. Right now, Vegas projects the Warriors to have the 9th most wins in the NBA. Thompson, though, has some issues with that, has some high hopes for the Warriors this coming season. Take a listen.
No, they're not going to be as good as they were last year. And by the way, I predict Steph's going to have about 500 threes this year without having to share the ball that much back in the backcourt with Klay. So he's going to come back to his MVP form we saw 2 years ago. And Draymond is motivated to have a great year because his contract year is coming up. So I think those two guys, and with the addition of D'Angelo Russell and the other role players that they've signed, I think they'll be right in the mix. You know, somewhere between 5, 6 seed until Klay comes back 100%, and then they'll be ready to make their move.
All right, Nick, no Kevin Durant. Klay's not coming back for a while, at least. You still think, and are you buying that the Warriors will be in the mix for a championship?
No, not for a championship. I think Vegas has about right, 9th. I think there will be 2 or 3 teams in the East that have more wins than them, Milwaukee, Philadelphia, and then we'll see who the third best team in the East is, if Durant comes back early, whomever. And then 5 or 6 teams in the West that will be better than them. Now, by the end of the year, assuming Klay's back, could they be an incredibly dangerous first-round opponent for any of those top teams in the West? Absolutely. Are Steph, Klay, and Draymond still as formidable a trio as anyone has in the NBA? Sure. But the reason they didn't win the title last year, in addition to injuries, was the slow decay of their defense. And that defense is going to be even worse this year. Over the last 5 years, here's the Warriors' ranks offensively. 1, 1, 1, 1, 1. Okay? Here's the ranks defensively. 1, 4, 2, 8, 10. You saw the year before this, the defense lag a bit. Maybe it was just because they had coasted to a championship the year before. They weren't as locked in. They were able to ratchet up in the playoffs. This year, they weren't able to ratchet up in the regular season or the playoffs except for moments. That defense is not going to be better with Iguodala gone, with D'Angelo Russell out there, with Klay Thompson when he comes back not being able to move laterally as well as we'd seen him in the past. So this can be a dangerous team, but not a championship team. And that's assuming, by the way, the personalities work well in the locker room, which with D'Angelo making $27 million and Draymond making 18, I'm not certain of that component either.
Yeah, I got a lot of respect for Michael Thompson, too, man. I used to watch him in college. When he's at the University of Minnesota, he used to wear this because he's from the Bahamas. He used to wear this, like, beaded necklace. When he was playing, they allowed him to wear that. But this is a father talking about his son, all right? There's no – when you look at that, the historic – how good they were historically, offensively and defensively. It just wasn't all these guys out there passing, moving, and everything. This is one of the best collection of offensive, defensive teams that we've seen. And now all of a sudden they lost Kevin and Klay's out, and, oh, no, we're just going to keep going. No, it doesn't happen like this. This historic run is over with. Their chance of a championship is over with until they get at least another player. Like, they're not going to go win a championship with their roster. Even I'll give Klay coming back 100%. They're still going to struggle with the defensive end. They're going to struggle rebounding the basketball. They're going to struggle with Steph. What position does he play when Klay comes back? Because he can't play off the ball because if you have all 3 of those guards on, they're too small. Like, I don't believe in the West now with the competition. You talking about them being a tough out. All the teams are a tough out. Any team that makes it in the West is going to be tough. So, no, the championship aspirations, as far as I'm concerned, are over in this short window for Golden State.
Can't the Warriors, though, hang their hat on the fact that remember we talked last season how well they were actually playing when KD was out, whether they needed KD. We were having these conversations. They figured out a way to all step up, maybe not completely
But it's not that team anymore, though.
Well, eventually Klay's going to come back, and I know Iggy's not there.
But that's a big, I know. I mean, that's the best plus-minus of anyone on the Warriors in this 5-year stretch, Andre Iguodala. Now, there's some noise in that rather than signal as far as who he was playing with, when he was playing. But he was incredibly important in the postseason. I mean, Game 6 against the Rockets without Kevin Durant. 5 of 6 from 3, Andre Iguodala. His ability to guard the opposing team's best perimeter player, that is important. Sean Livingston this year wasn't good for them, but in the past he had been good for them in the postseason. But when we talk about the best teams in basketball, the top 10 teams, who has a worse front court than Golden State? The Lakers got Anthony Davis, right? The Clippers have they have Montrezl Harrell at center, but they also Paul George or Kawhi. One of them's playing power forward. One of them's playing one of their big man positions. You go down. The Jazz have Rudy Gobert along with two dead-eye shooters in the front court. Go down the list. Like when you're the Warriors and it's Draymond and then who? Kevon Looney, who you got for $5 million per. Willie Cauley-Stein, who you got for the mid-level. Like the big people in the playoffs will eat this team up. Now, again, I think they absolutely could make the second round and throw a scare into a team maybe in the second round, but they're not going to make their 6th straight finals. They're not going to be a worse team with this level of fatigue that then makes their 6th straight finals. To me, that window is closed for this season. As Cris said, could it open back up the season after this?
Sure.
Absolutely. But not this year.
I think people forget how important Iggy was to this team, especially down the stretch last year. All right, let's get back to James Harden. He recently reunited with his buddy Russell Westbrook in Houston. The two not only played together way back when as members of the Thunder, they played together way back when as kids for the Boys and Girls Club in L.A. There has been a lot of talk around how these two will fit with each other. However, no one had publicly heard from Harden until now. Take a listen.
I mean, I'm excited, man. It's a new chapter, but I know he's excited. He's been in Oklahoma City for 11 years, so it's a new chapter for him, and we're welcoming him with open arms. And I mean, it's going to work. It's that trust factor, you know. I trust him, he trusts me, and you know, obviously with the group that we already have, and you know, the things that we've already accomplished, it should be an easy transition for him, just be incorporated right in, and things should be on the go. When you have talent like that, it works itself out. You know, you communicate and you go out there and you compete, and possession by possession, you figure things out. Throughout the course of the season, you figure things out, and that's just what it is, you know. But when you have talent, you have guys with IQ, you got guys that are willing to sacrifice, it always works itself out.
Well, of course, Harden has to be all in on the move right now. This is the team this coming season. Are you buying what James Harden is saying and the reason he's saying it, though, CC?
Yeah, I'm buying that right now. Yeah, he believes that. And he's going to try to do everything that he can. And they do have a rapport. They do have a history together. But I think the thing that's important is James Harden's got a lot of respect for Russ. And that's what makes situations like this work. Like, he's not expecting it immediately. Yeah, we love each other off the court. We do some stuff together. But playing basketball, we got to figure it out. Possession by possession, game by game. Once you get to the All-Star break, figuring out what we're going to do, that little stretch before we get to the playoffs. Also, how are they going to play in the playoffs? Like, this is going to be a question we're going to be asking all season. And when they start the playoffs, can they do this in the playoffs? Like, yes, these are two guys whose style you would think would be like oil and water. Both of them hold the ball a lot. Both of them isolate a lot. How are they going to operate on the court with the coach who said, we're not going to do anything different? So I can't grant them a whole bunch of, you know something, they're going to have great chemistry. They're going to have this because from a style standpoint, there's a tremendous contrast in how they both like to play offensive basketball and on the defensive end. Who's going to sacrifice on the defensive end? Who's going to guard the point guard? Who's going to guard the shooting guard? So this is going to be an ongoing, same question. It's going to be a good one in 3 months, in 6 months. If they get into a critical series, it's going to be a great question. So I don't know what's going to happen, but my biggest concern is not with the two players. My biggest concern is with the coach. What does he orchestrate to be able to help them build this relationship on the court?
And as far as what the coach could orchestrate, I thought a different coach, Coach David Thorpe, presented an idea in an article this weekend that I thought was really interesting, which was, what if the Rockets ask Russ to play the role Draymond plays for the Warriors offensively, meaning catch the ball not at the three-point line, but at that high post area, catch a free throw line extended, wheel and deal from there. Like, there are ways it's like, oh, well, that's really interesting with his passing, his ability to get to the basket, his ability prior to this season to hit that mid-range shot. I do think there are ways.
Question, though.
Yes.
This will be my question. So when Russ rebounds the basketball at a high level, he's going to get 8 or 9 rebounds a game.
Yep.
All right? You want him to give the ball to a center? You want him to give the ball to a forward? Because every guard, since they were little, And Russ has been taught, once I get the ball, it's my option to go. So you getting ready to retrain me?
No, how they run, I would imagine if Russ gets defensive rebounds, they go. Russ take it and go. So that is an adjustment because this is a team that played at a slow pace. This is a team that wasn't get up and go, and it would, whoever got the rebound, pitch it to Harden, let him dribble 1,000 times. Like, no doubt about that. But the reason that I have some level of optimism for this is not just because of, if you bet on talent, Russ is right now more talented than Chris Paul was, but because maybe this is naive of me. But for Russ and Harden, they've accomplished everything except for the one thing. They've accomplished everything individually except for high-level team success. Neither one of them have been to a finals since they played together, since they were both deferring to a better player in Kevin Durant, since before they were first-team All-NBA, league MVP guys. So do they have the self-awareness to know that we both won scoring titles, we both won assist titles, we both won league MVP, we both broken records that people thought in this league were unbreakable? In NBA history, there have been 15 50-point triple-doubles. 6 the entirety of the NBA history, 9 by Harden and Russ individually the last 3 seasons. They've done all that, and they've been going home early. Russ been going home in the first round 3 years in a row. Harden's only made the conference finals 1 time. Do they have enough awareness of that to say, okay, we both have to give some, with more give going on Russ's behalf because Harden is the better player? That will be the test of the Rockets season. How self-aware are they? And Chris's question, can the coach impress upon them, this is what we need to do to win?
CC, you heard what Harden said there at the end. When you have talent like this, it all sort of works itself out. I wonder what's more important at this high level of basketball, chemistry or talent? The Celtics, when Kyrie was out, just really had chemistry. They made it work. Now you have a team that's got a lot of talent. Where do each fall?
It really depends on the coach. A coach can really determine, can I coach talented players? I'm concerned about the coach there, not just because I just want to bang on the coach. Brad Stevens, how did he do with talent? He didn't do as well with more talented. Most coaches aren't like Bobby Knight and are going to try to, you know something, my system is more powerful than any talent. Coaches will tell you, 99% of them, give me the most talent that I can get. But the problem is our talent overlaps. We have the talent to dribble the basketball. These guys are number 1 and 2 in possession of the basketball. Yep. And you talk about if Harden's going to play off the ball, if Russ is going to play off the ball. Both of their stats are awful as far as them playing off the ball. Harden had, 500 threes last year where he dribbled the ball 7 times. During them 7 dribbles, what is Russ supposed to do?
Right.
Russ was one of the worst as far as shooting 400 three-pointers. So what's he supposed to do? There is a huge problem from a style standpoint. So, yes, I'd like to have talent, but I like to have that talent dispersed around because I believe that Russ's talent is going to hurt Eric Gordon. And Eric Gordon is emerging as their second-best offensive player. So now what does he do? So I don't believe in some of the things that Nick's saying because Harden is the better player. Russ didn't wake up this morning thinking that. So, yeah, there are people who are self-aware. Most of the time, they're not great athletes because they don't have to be self-aware. Look at all the things we've seen with Russ the last couple years that would say, oh, he's not really aware. So we're getting ready to see. There's going to be a major compromise, I believe, by Harden because it's Harden's team. Harden didn't get traded to Houston. It's his team, and he's coming off the stronger seasons, and he's the best player.
And listen, and of the best duos in basketball, this is the one where the fit's the biggest question. There is no question on LeBron, Anthony Davis. When healthy, there's no question on Steph and Clay. We believe there's not much of a question on Kawhi and Paul George. And Russ is top 20 guy. But there are other guys in that top 20 that are obviously a better fit with Harden. If the Rockets had their druthers, they would have rather had Paul George than Russ, who's around the same time. They maybe would have rather had Jimmy Butler, even though I think Russ is a better player than him. There are other guys that are obviously better fits. So it is a question of the coach's ability to get through to him and these two guys' ability to recognize we both have to give some. And that is the big question. Because your question about talent or chemistry, Jenna, in the NBA this year, you're going to need both. There's 10 teams with a ton of talent. Which team's talent plays the best and works the best together, that's the team most likely to be champions. The Rockets are in the game now talent-wise. Will they be in the game chemistry?
Just like we started this show, Jenna. Went for the talent. Let that chemistry thing come on.
Just took a little bit. No, exactly right.
Coming up, did Kawhi Leonard
compliment.
intentionally mislead the Lakers in free agency? Yeah, I took that. Thank you so much. That's
Good. Start with the talent.
That's still ahead on First Things
This
First.
dude.
It is like when we started the show. I was dribbling all the time. I had to realize got other all-star
Take it off the dribble. Let me see it.
Absolutely.
Let me see it.
Back here, First Things First, we're joined by Super Bowl champ Chris Canty. Look closely.
Are you sure this is Chris Canty?
Look closely
Yes, man.
at one Chris
I'm in
Canty.
the building.
A little lighter than he was on Thursday.
A little bit. I had to cut the beard off.
Okay.
Mom Duke saw the show on
3.5 pounds less
Thursday.
hair.
She said, "What are you doing with all that hair on your face, boy? Cut that off." So you know when Mama Candy say something, you gotta go take a visit to your
With
barber.
respect to Mama Kenny, has she never watched the show before? You've had that beard since I've known you. When's the last time you were clean shaven like this?
I don't know if Mama Candy gonna appreciate you calling her out like that.
Okay, well, listen.
I'm just telling you. I'm just telling you.
It's a big change for you.
Man.
Don't think it's beyond her to roll up on you in the studio,
Oh, wow.
just so you know.
Can I just say, this is smooth and soft,
you,
and I'm
Jenna.
super
Well, how you know it's
excited.
soft, Jenna?
I don't know.
It looks.
It looks smooth and soft from my
roll with
vantage
it, Cece,
point,
just roll with
all
it.
the way over here.
Jenna.
Hey, filed under, it takes one to know one, Canny. Brett Favre weighed in on the latest crop of young quarterbacks lighting up the league of late. The Hall of Famer said that Baker Mayfield and Patrick Mahomes remind him of the way he used to play. A little reckless, a lot fearless, and wildly successful. That's some high praise. Chris Canty, who's set up for more success this year, Baker or Mahomes?
Listen, I'm as bullish on the Cleveland Browns this year as anybody. I love what that organization did in terms of maintaining some continuity with the offensive system, elevating Freddie Kitchens from the OC to the head coach, and then what they did on the defensive side of the ball. I mean, that was an area of concern. They were the 30th ranked defense last year. They needed to get better. They did upgrade in personnel. They brought in Sheldon Richardson, traded for Olivier Vernon. They drafted Greedy Williams in the second round. So they're putting some pieces on that side of the ball. But, I mean, I can't say that Baker Mayfield is set up to have more success than the quarterback that put his team in the AFC Championship last year. I mean, when you're talking about being in the Final Four at the end of an NFL season, and then the cast of characters coming back, the NFL not suspending Tyreek Hill, being able to have him, and then what the Chiefs did on the defensive side of the ball, we're making the move to get Frank Clark and signing Tyrann Mathieu in free agency, not to mention drafting a Virginia guy, Juan Thornhill, to pair with him in the back end. Like, I just really like exactly where this Kansas City Chiefs team is, and so I have to say that Pat Mahomes is going to pick up where he's left off. Now, maybe not the 50 touchdown passes, but in terms of the wins and positioning for his team in the postseason, I think the Kansas City Chiefs are going to be right back there and again in the mix in the AFC, contending for a title.
Yeah, I don't. Since 98, 99, Peyton Manning repeated as MVP of the league.
So more recently than that, maybe 08, 09.
Oh, 08, 09.
Yep.
But since then, no one's repeated. We have seen MVP. There'll be some, especially quarterback. When you have that type of season, we have seen some correction, typically 10 or 15%. Patty Mahomes, what I'm worried about this year is if they try to throw the ball deep down the field, is the offensive line as good as it was last year? Because you can only do so much play action. And if you're going to throw the ball deep down the field, which they were the best in the league at, you have to hold the ball longer for that. That's one concern. Last year, 10 times either the defenders had their hands on the ball or someone knocked the ball out of the defender's hand. Those were 10 potential interceptions for Patty Mahomes. So that's a correction that's going to be made. You know the league is going to change some things. After what New England did to them in the AFC Championship, they'll try to duplicate some of those things. Will they be able to accomplish it? Some teams will be successful. So we expect them to come back to the pack. Now, what they have going on in Cleveland, I believe as long as they protect the quarterback, and people look at the head coach and be like, wow, man, he played quarterback at Alabama. Well, but he used to be an offensive line coach. So if you watch them last year, when they changed the season around, went to Baker, they started running the ball. So I believe they're going to protect them. I believe that the weapons, man, you can't split. Do I want Cleveland's weapons or do I want Kansas City? It's because the running backs, when they get Kareem Hunt. So what does it boil down to? Confidence. I believe both of these guys will go forward. I believe they will be number 1 and 2 in the MVP. Aaron Rodgers will have something to say about it. But the NFL will come back. And if Kansas City's defense don't get better, it's going to hurt their offense.
100%.
If Kansas City had the Browns' defense from last year, they'd be Super Bowl champs.
Right, and the Browns didn't have a great defense last year.
No, they were
Chiefs,
awful, but what they did do was take the ball away.
They took the ball away,
Yes.
and the Chiefs' defense was dead last in almost every major category. They particularly on the road, they were really unspeakably bad. So first of all, whomever's more set up for success this season, big picture-wise, I do believe, and this is going to sound like a big statement, this is going to be this generation's Manning Brady. Two guys in the same conference who are the two best quarterbacks in football for a long time. Maybe that doesn't start this year with them being the two best quarterbacks in football, even though Mahomes was last season. I think that's what we're seeing here. I think with Baker and the Browns and Patty Mahomes and the Chiefs, those are, you might say, those organizations. Man, the Colts and Patriots weren't some great organizations historically, or at least in recent NFL history, prior to Manning and Brady becoming Manning and Brady. So I think that's what we're in store for over the next decade plus. The reason that I think you can make a strong argument for the Browns in this is because, to me, there are fewer question marks on the defense. If the skill position spots are close, and the offensive line is close, and if the quarterbacks are even kind of close, and Baker, we saw the second half of last year was really good, while Mahomes was sensational the whole year. To me, the Browns have more known quantities on defense. The Chiefs did upgrade getting Frank Clark, but they lost Justin Houston and Dee Ford. They did bring in Tyrann Mathieu, but that was the worst secondary in the NFL last year. And those corners are not, to me, much better than they were last season, and they got torched all year. The Browns have studs at every level of the defense. They have a shutdown corner. They have two good safeties, and I think they are in the argument for the most imposing defensive line in football. Those, to me, are more known quantities than what the Chiefs have defensively. So if you're of the belief that a quarterback's best friend can be his defense, creating turnovers, giving him short fields, then the Browns could be, and Baker, in better position than the reigning MVP, Patrick Mahomes.
Brett Favre went on to say the thing that makes these two separate from other quarterbacks is they have the most incredible football sixth sense. When you're a quarterback, how is that important to the game? Why is that the one intangible that you look for?
Well, I think it's important to have a feel for the game. Anytime you start talking about players that have played at the highest level, like Cris Carter being in the Hall of Fame, I think you have that intangible. You have a feel for it, and you know the moments when to take chances, but you also know the moments when to pull back. And I think Pat Mahomes and Baker Mayfield both have that quality trait. Now, when I look at the teams, and I'm talking about when you look at everything around the roster, not just talking about the guys that are in the locker room, the Cleveland Browns, to me, you have to be a little bit concerned with the coaching staff and inexperience. Freddie Kitchens has never been a head coach at this level. Andy Reid has been a head coach for 20-plus years. So, I mean, you have to give the advantage to him and being able to set the agenda for his team, to be able to understand his personnel and how to take advantage of the matchups week in and week out. I think you have to give that edge to the Kansas City Chiefs. The one thing that concerns me with the Cleveland Browns, even though they have a ton of talent, they got a lot of strong personalities in that building, and it's a relatively young core of players. Baker Mayfield, David Njoku, Denzel Ward, Larry Ogunjobi, all those guys are under 25. So, I mean, there is a certain learning curve that comes along with trying to win at this level, and then you throw into the fact that you have a first-year head coach. I mean, there is going to be some challenges in Cleveland. I'm not saying that they're not talented to overcome it, because I do believe they are, but I take the known commodity and knowing what Pat Mahomes and that Kansas City Chiefs team is capable of. Baker Mayfield has only got 6 wins as a starting quarterback. Games that he started, he's only come up with 6 wins in that 1 year. We saw what Pat Mahomes did last year. He had 12 wins. His team was in the AFC Championship. So you got to give credit where credit is due. Right now, the Cleveland Browns are just potential. I know what the Kansas City Chiefs are when they're at their best.
Man, it's going to be fun to watch these two this season. Candy, we'll see you a little bit later on the show. Coming up, do stars no longer want to play with LeBron? We discuss that next with Hall of Famer Isaiah Thomas. Stick around.
Deshaun Watson texted me, and Andrew Luck said, "What's up?"
Oh, okay. Oh, they're upset.
Yeah,
I got you.
Yeah,
what's up?
You got to throw that guy in the
Yeah, what's up?
Just saying.
Yeah.
Back here, first things first, just swapping pictures on the phone. We're joined
Still celebrating in Toronto.
by Hall of Famer, 2-time champ Isaiah Thomas.
What up, man? How are you,
good.
sir?
How you doing?
Now, Jenna,
Good to see you
Talk
this
to me,
morning.
Zeke. Talk to me, CC.
No, I like that.
I'm
like
talking
that.
on behalf of Zeke. Now,
Yeah.
I made a comment last week about the NBA Hall of Fame. They just open the door and people come in. No, my man give me. I'm going in there. I belong.
Even with
Yes.
the NFL Hall of Fame standards, he's a first ballot.
Oh, there's no doubt.
Chris thinks the NBA is a little too liberal with
You
who
made
they
a
let in the
very
Hall.
funny comment.
I agree with Chris.
I told you.
Too many
like
people in? I know you would.
No,
You
I
said
think
that.
the two still, top-notch Hall of Fames in terms of where you have to be like way up there to get in. Football and baseball.
Oh,
I mean,
Yeah.
you got to do a lot of stuff to get in those Hall of Fames.
Okay,
All right.
fair enough.
Now that the standards have been raised, let's talk some basketball. Let's talk Kawhi Leonard, actually, who's settling into life as a Clipper. New reports are surfacing that the Lakers are a little disgruntled over how his decision went down. They reportedly felt they got played by Kawhi in free agency and that he never had any true intentions of signing with them. Zeke, Kawhi spurning the Lakers. Does that show you that the allure of playing with LeBron has perhaps worn off a bit?
No, not at all. I think what Anthony Davis did leaving New Orleans, and he's one of the top 5 players in the NBA, him leaving New Orleans at such a young age, saying, I want to go to L.A. and play with LeBron, let me know that LeBron still has clout, still has power. Now, if he could have got Kawhi, then that would have been just, the cherry on top of the ice cream. You can't. They're like, maybe 6 blue chippers in the NBA. And LeBron had a chance to get two of them.
Yeah.
And you got to say what Jeannie Buss and the Lakers have done the last 2 summers. Last summer, you go out and you grab the biggest fish in the ocean in LeBron James. And then if Anthony Davis was a big fish in terms of free agency and not trade, then you go and get him. They've had 2 great summers when you talk about the Lakers.
And I don't think it's fair to criticize Kawhi for how he went about his process. At no point did he make it seem like it was going to be at 6 p.m. on June 30th or at 6 p.m. on July 1st. We knew it was going to take some time. We knew he was weighing his options. He didn't, best I can tell, didn't make any commitments to any organizations that he broke. And he was waiting to see if the Clippers could do something that is, relatively speaking, unprecedented, which is trade for a player who had just signed a contract 1 year prior and give up an unprecedented draft haul to get him. So Kawhi was very judicious about the process. I do not think that he lied to LeBron. I do not think he lied to the Lakers that he was considering them. Now, maybe the Lakers' exceptionalism made them feel, of course, we're the leading candidates, when in reality they were second, maybe third. But if the Oklahoma City Thunder flatly say, offer us all the picks and staples, we're not trading Paul George, then Kawhi has to come back to Uncle Dennis and his people and say, all right, do we want to go to the Clippers by ourselves when LeBron and Anthony Davis are in L.A., when we know what the other teams across the West are? Do we want to go back to Toronto, deal with those winners, and have a very slim chance of ever reaching a greater height than the one we just did, or join up with LeBron and AD? I think for Kawhi, it was not my belief. The allure of LeBron is worn off. I think Kawhi never had the allure of the super team. And if it was just LeBron in Los Angeles, or if it was just Anthony Davis in Los Angeles, meaning with the Lakers, that would have been one thing. But the fact that they were both there, and it would have been phrased as, man, the reigning finals MVP is going to kind of stack the deck here. When we have a chance for a competitive, wide-open league, he's going to remove that the way Kevin Durant did with Golden State. That he didn't want to do that. I don't know that has to be a referendum on the attractiveness of LeBron.
CC, if Kawhi didn't join with the Clippers, if they couldn't get Paul George over there, you think he would have gone to the Lakers, or would he have gone back to Toronto? Or would he have gone by himself to the Clippers?
There was a problem going back to Toronto because were they going to be good enough? And if he could be in Los Angeles, he would have preferred to be in Los Angeles as a home destination, all right? So he requested that from the beginning. So they had a tremendous advantage on it. But I think you bring up the strongest point is Kawhi didn't have a great deal of interest in joining a super team. You mentioned it before. 2 summers ago, what'd they do? They went out and got LeBron James. Anthony Davis requests a trade. We have all this. They blow up everything. They bring him over. Kawhi didn't want to be a part of, well, how good am I?
Yeah.
That now, you saw what I just did. Well, if I'm that good and you believe in yourself, why would I have to join the Lakers? Now, Kawhi wasn't going to be trying to play, hey, me against the world.
Yeah.
Like, I'm getting ready to knock these dudes off
Exactly.
every year.
Exactly.
No, Kawhi's got a lot of sense. He played his hand right. Because let's go back to the whole thing. He communicated with Kevin Durant. He communicated with Kyrie Irving.
Yeah.
Shocked me. And then he went out and made the gangster move, Chicago style, called Paul George. Paul's like, well, what I'm supposed to do? Go back over, and Kawhi told him, go back over and tell them people to trade you. Wow, Kawhi Leonard, who doesn't talk, giving that type of advice that changed free agency. And I believe that the Lakers, if the Clippers don't make that trade, then the Lakers, he's going to sign with the Lakers. Toronto, if they couldn't make another trade, which they talked about with OKC, they're not going to get in this. Kawhi wants to win championships, didn't have any interest in joining the super team, though, Zeke.
100% correct, on point. And Kawhi wanted to go home, right? And the first choice was the Clippers, always the Clippers. The Clippers didn't necessarily have all of the assets to get that second player. So Kawhi said, I'll wait, right? And that was okay.
So you're saying when free agency opened, everything being equal, the Clippers were in the lead even though Toronto had recently been crowned champs?
Yes, because you can never resist the allure of going home. And what I know about us as players, former players, we always want to go home, and there's a yearning to go home, play in front of family, friends, so forth and so on. Now, that may not always be the best thing, but that's all yearning, right? And when you look at LeBron starting a lot of this, going from Miami back to Cleveland, saying, I want to win at home. Didn't work out there with Gilbert and everybody else, so he left again. Okay, Paul George and Kawhi, those two guys went back home. And now they're saying we got a chance to win at home, whether it be with the Clippers or the Lakers. I think those two guys just want to go back home.
And even Anthony Davis was asked this weekend at an event in Chicago, I think.
Yeah.
Would you ever consider playing for Chicago? He hadn't even played a game for the Lakers yet. He's like, yeah, maybe one day, who knows?
Yeah.
Like, because it's home. So that was always there with Kawhi, and we had always heard it was there with Paul George until he re-upped in OKC.
Zeke brings up a great point, because even from a youngster, when you get to the field, you get to the court, you looking in the stands.
Yep.
I wonder, is it my mom? Is it my auntie? Is it my
always
uncle?
Looking.
My cousin? Like,
Chris, your last year, that last year where you ended up signing with Miami.
Yes.
Before you signed with Miami, before you officially retired, when you opted out of your deal in Minnesota, wasn't Cleveland on the board for you?
Yeah, I actually went to Cleveland, was thinking about Dwight Clark was the general manager. That was my grandfather's favorite team growing up. And to be able to play, because this is the thing. Typically, the professional athlete, you don't know anyone there. And if we had our druthers, we had our preference, I'd like to know. So I'm getting ready to put on this performance. I'd like to have some people who really know me be in the stands. And that's one of the allures of being able to go back home to showcase your talent.
Yep.
All right, let's take a break. Isaiah, stick around. Coming up, we're going to discuss if the Warriors can win another title next season without Kevin Durant. That's next up for some Spurs. On Saturday, we got a great MLB doubleheader for you. First, Aaron Judge powers the Pinstripes against Mookie Betts and the Red Sox. Then, all 5-6 of Jose Altuve and the Astros take on the Cardinals. It all starts at 4 Eastern, 1 Pacific on FS1 and the Fox Sports app. You could have been a baseball player,
It's a great doubleheader.
Back here with Isaiah Thomas. Zeke, you played against NBA champ Michael Thompson twice in the finals. His son, Klay Thompson, recovering and rehabbing from a torn ACL. He's expected to miss the first part of the Warriors season. Right now, Vegas projects the Warriors to have the 9th most wins. That's down from last year when they were projected to have, the entire title. Here's what Michael had to say about the Warriors.
No, they're not going to be as good as they were last year. And by the way, I predict Steph's going to have 500 threes this year without having to share the ball that much back in the backcourt with Klay. So he's going to come back to his MVP form we saw 2 years ago. And Draymond is motivated to have a great year because his contract year is coming up. So I think those two guys, and with the addition of D'Angelo Russell and the other role players that they've signed, I think they'll be right in the mix. You know, somewhere between 5-6 seed until Klay comes back 100%, and then they'll be ready to make their move.
All right, Isaiah, are you buying that the Warriors will be in the mix for a championship with no Kevin Durant, with half the season without Klay Thompson?
They'll be in the mix for the playoffs. I mean, the West is so tough, but they as currently as their roster stands, they have, very little chance of contending or winning the championship the way the West is. I mean, the West is loaded right now. And when you're without Klay and when you're without, Durant, I mean, that's a big knockdown off your team. Now, I do think Steph will try to have a great season. And when I say try to have a great season, I mean that the defensive looks that he's going to get this year is going to be intensified because there's no Klay.
Right.
Because there's no Durant.
Similar to the playoffs.
Similar to the play. So the single coverage that he used to get is no longer.
Even with D'Angelo out there, it's not going to be the same type of thing.
Every time Steph comes off a screen this year, he's going to be double teamed. And this is what made Jordan, Kareem, and those guys so great as scorers, right? Because for 15 years, every time they touched the basketball, they were double teamed. They were trapped. So they were always playing 1 against 2 every time they touched it. Steph has had the luxury, Durant and also Klay, those 3 guys together have had the luxury of always playing single coverage and then always playing against switcher defenses where I'm matched up against a bigger guy who doesn't have the foot speed that I have or can cover the ground that I can cover. This year, I do think Steph will see more intensified defenses. I think he knows that, and I think he'll be ready to perform, and he will play well. I just don't know if it'll be enough.
And I also think the audience needs to understand, let's just pretend for a moment KD never pops his Achilles, and he re-signs with Golden State, and he's coming back full strength. But Klay has the torn ACL. There would still be real questions if that Warriors team was going to win the title, given 5 straight trips to the finals and the fatigue of 5 straight 100-game seasons. Just because they lost this year and guys left doesn't mean Steph is not fatigued. Doesn't mean Draymond is not fatigued. There are not many people in the world that actually haven't experienced something similar, but one of them who does sit right next to us. Yeah. You guys won back-to-back titles, but the audience should remember, you went to 3 straight NBA finals, and then that next year, playoffs was quick.
5 Eastern Conference Finals.
5 Eastern Conference Finals in a row.
Yeah.
3 NBA Finals in a row, and then the next year, I think it was the first round. But how much of that was that you guys were getting older, but how much of it was the fatigue of what you had done the previous 3 years?
It's the fatigue. And Mikhail and I were covering the finals, and we was having an interesting conversation because everything that Golden State was saying at the podium after the game, he and I were looking at each other saying, man, that sounds just like the stuff that we were saying at the end when it's over. And the fatigue factor comes in with soft tissue injuries. The soft tissue injuries of a calf, a hamstring, a quad, or you'll pull a bicep. So those soft tissue injuries really add up. And then the mental concentration. Yes. You just can't concentrate. You can't sustain concentration. So you saw Golden State, they're playing 4 to 5 minute bursts. And then you go, oh, they're back, but they can't sustain it. Where you saw a Toronto team that can sustain it, they can come first quarter, second quarter, third quarter, fourth quarter. And that's because you're just fatigued, you're just mentally drained. And that shows up on turnovers, missed shots, transition defense. Those are the 3 boxes that you look at when you talk about
one thing I'd be concerned about, too, because I think you guys did a great job. Draymond Green. Draymond's going to be playing for a new contract. How can he focus with that mental fatigue? Because the one thing is, when you get mental fatigue, you do things uncharacteristic. That's what I'll say about you. At the end, I saw you do some things that uncharacteristic because, man, I'm tired of this.
Tired.
I'm tired. Like, even when you walked off the court. If we could go back on that again, the Isaiah I know, oh, man, you congratulate them, man. Y'all took it to it.
100%.
I'm tired.
100%.
This is going on too long, year after year after year. I'm glad you brought up that point and mentioning you and Mikal and the similar conversations the Warriors were saying at the podium.
So tell me where the Warriors stack up in the West. We talked about how good the Lakers were, the Clippers, you have the Jazz, you have teams that played well last year. I'm just curious if you think they are on the fringe to make the playoffs, how you would stack the West up.
They're talented enough and Steph is good enough to get them in the playoffs, right? No matter who you put around him.
Yep.
He's talented enough and good enough to get them in the playoffs. What he's not good enough to do is overcome Harden and Westbrook. Okay, Paul George and Kawhi.
Yeah.
Okay,
right.
LeBron James and Anthony Davis. CJ and Dame, right? He's, you know, when you're at that level, right, that he's been at for so long, and he's going to be challenged. And the one thing that we don't have as little guys, and I call him a little guy even though he's bigger than me, right? But the one thing that we don't have that overwhelming physicality where we can walk into the gym and be like, look, I'm bigger than you.
Right. On a bad day, I can get you 25 still.
Yeah, and I can hit you in a way that makes you say, okay, I don't want to mess with you today, right? That's what the bigger guys always have. Smaller guys, we don't have that. The only thing that we have that we can get by with is wit. And if we can outsmart you on that day, we can win. But when the bigger guy shows up and he's playing smart, right? He's not making mistakes. He's stronger than you. He's faster than you. Then that bigger, faster, stronger guy is going to beat you if he's not, you know, making mistakes.
And the fatigue part of it also, not for Steph specifically, but for the organization, it plays such an enormous factor as far as when you have been competing for championships.
Yes.
And you know going into the season, all right, we're not going to disqualify ourselves. We know this isn't a championship team. How hard do you get up for those games in February when you're not going for 73 wins? You're not trying to prove the world wrong on the Durant stuff. What little mini battles do you create within yourselves? And it's one of the reasons why the biggest myth in NBA, maybe in sports history, was, man, if Jordan wouldn't have retired, they'd have won 8 straight. No, they wouldn't have.
No, if Shaq wouldn't have left.
Okay, maybe they wouldn't have gotten that other 3-peat.
No.
Sure, but maybe they still would have won 6, but in a different order of operations. Like the idea that anyone, what Jordan's retirement gave that Bulls team, even if they wouldn't have wished for it, was a reset, a chance to have those shorter seasons, a chance to change the team up. The Warriors didn't get that. The Warriors didn't have Durant didn't get hurt at the end of the regular season, got bounced in the first round. They played as many games they would have played if they'd won the title. So they don't get any reprieve just because they lost, and that's a real thing.
Are the Warriors underdogs going into next season? Because that's
absolutely.
hilarious.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Yeah.
Underdog Golden State Warriors.
Well, they without Clay and Durant.
That's true.
They're underdogs.
That's true. All right, Isaiah, we'll see you a little bit later. Coming up, is Baker Mayfield already as good as one Patrick Mahomes? That's next on First Things First. Back here, First Things First, we're going viral. Check out 41-year-old Tom Brady gearing up for his 20th season, but it's not all work for Tom. Check him out with his daughter. They were cliff diving in Costa Rica. Okay. So
That's scary, man.
I had a little issue with it. I love Tom's appetite for all things that are fun and a little fearless and a tad bit reckless, but man, she's 6. She was not ready to jump off that cliff.
Well, this is the problem.
Awkwardly.
No. She faked him out. She was getting ready to jump.
Yeah.
I'm sure they had agreed upon. And then and then Daddy.
And then at that point, you've got to pull her.
You have
at that
to.
point, he did what he had to do, because if he just like gently
Then
tugs her
she
wherever she could fall,
but-
and that cliff diving stuff's scary.
Yeah, let me tell you though, when you play in the NFL, you play something in a business like it is, you need to be able to get away from the business. Life is for the living, Jenna.
Yeah.
You got to be able to do stuff like that, especially Tom Brady. Y'all send me the video, because Cris won't be doing stuff like that. I ain't about no adventure, but I love to see people out there taking chances.
I was just going to say, I don't see a scenario by which you would do that.
No, last time Cris was
I
in
survived
the
the
water,
projects
drowned,
and
man.
16 years in the league. I'm okay.
And a trip to Hawaii with jet ski, died and you almost drowned. That happened too.
But wait.
If I survive you two, that would be the story of my life.
Tom has had a very nice offseason.
He and Josh Norman, man, living life to the fullest, jumping bulls.
All right, stories to start your
Cliff
morning.
diving.
Sponsored by Gillette Clear Joe. Kyle Korver agreed to a one-year deal to join the Bucks. Korver, known for his three-point prowess. How much is he known for it? Well, over the last 3 seasons, he's shot a higher percentage from deep than Steph Curry, then Klay Thompson, and then J.J. Redick. What do you make of the signing, Nick?
It's an outstanding signing. It also shows to me, in Korver's eyes, he believes the Bucks are what I believe they are, which may be the favorites to win the NBA championship, because you know the Lakers would have loved to have him. You know the Rockets almost assuredly would have loved to have him. I'm just speculating on that. But the Bucks, he can fill that role Mirotic played, but I think better. Mirotic went back to Europe. He can space the court, more reliable
he's a better
three-point
fit.
shooter. And with Giannis, you need court spacers. So I love this fit for Korver and for the Bucks.
I love the model. Follow what LeBron did for success. Put players around him that make your superstar better. I love the fact that the general manager there in Milwaukee, they see that. And if you want to learn how to shooting routine, learn how to get the ball up, improve your free throw shooting, Kyle Korver's one of the best. He helped LeBron out a lot when he was in Cleveland.
Yep.
All right, moving on. Despite all the stories of discontent in the Rockets locker room, James Harden claims that he's good with Chris Paul. Says reports of a feud between the two are, quote, false talk. Nick, what do you make of this?
Listen, I don't think they were quite as bad as it was made out to be, but it also was not what my friend Daryl Morey made it out to be, which was nothing. Obviously, there was smoke to that fire, a la that State Farm commercial where James burns down Chris Paul's kitchen. Listen.
Yeah, he just burned down his career.
I don't think if these two were to see each other at an awards banquet or on the NBA circuit, they have bad blood. But I do think the professional relationship had run its course. And so I don't think that I buy what Harden's selling to a degree. I don't think that they're going to be out talking trash about each other, but they didn't enjoy playing together.
No, I think they're going to take the professional approach and everything, but a lot like Shaq and Kobe. If they hadn't have won championships or, ultimately that truth wouldn't have came out, but now they both talk about openly how much truth there was to it. There's a lot of truth to it. I'm going to treat this like Ben Simmons' jump shot. Send me the video where Harden and Chris Paul are kicking it off the court, all right? Then I'll believe there's no problem. Ben Simmons, when y'all show me the video of him knocking down them Jays, then I'll believe there's no problem.
Okay. Love it. Poor Ben Simmons.
On to the NFL now. Falcons wideout Julio Jones reported to training camp on Sunday. Julio wants a new deal, but still has 2 years left on his current deal. He said, quote, Mr. Blank gave me his word. I'm not holding out. See, how important is it for the Falcons to keep Julio happy?
It's important. He has a great relationship with the organization. They traded multiple picks to be able to draft him out of the University of Alabama. And he has been everything that they wanted him to be. Big-time player, can run short routes, can go deep. He is the most talented, most complete receiver that we have in the NFL. So all the other receivers have to live up to the standard. He deserved to get a new contract because so many deals have been done since his old.
Even though he's got 2 years left on his deal, the market has passed him by a few times over. So he, at this point, is underpaid. But this is the ideal superstar owner relationship that we so rarely see in the NFL, aside from with the quarterbacks, where a player can go to the owner, they can have a handshake agreement. Listen, show up, we need you, we will get this done. And the player can believe in that handshake agreement. So I believe this gets done sometime during the season, and Julio gets paid what he deserves.
All right, moving on. Sticking with football, though, you can file this one under It Takes One to Know One. Brett Favre weighing in on the latest crop of young quarterbacks lighting up the league of late. The Hall of Fame quarterback said that Baker and Patty Mahomes remind him of the way he used to play. Just a little bit reckless, a lot of bit fearless, and wildly successful. It's a lot of high praise there. See, who's set up for more success this year? Would it be Baker Mayfield or Patrick Mahomes?
Man, it's hard to determine success because Patty Mahomes, the bar is already so high. AFC, best record
in the
NFL, best record, home field advantage, playing against Tom Brady, MVP season, the way they run their offense. Like, it's really not a fair comparison because Baker, even after the short success that he had, the 6 wins, they do have the type of personnel, 2 running backs, 3 quality receivers that, yes, these will be 2 of the best offenses, but, man, this is the game of football. It's a team, all right? So Patty Mahomes, a lot of things he's not going to have control over. That Chiefs defense, that's not Patty Mahomes' fault. That's one of the worst defenses I've ever seen on a championship caliber team. That they led the NFL last year in minutes on the field. The reason why is because they were that bad. They couldn't get off on third down, couldn't stop people in the red zone. So if I'm being honest, this is a team, 53-man roster, top to bottom, if you want to throw in the head coach, because Andy Reid does have an edge over the rookie and Fred Kitchen. But, man, Baker Mayfield is set up top to bottom. Their defense is going to win them a couple games. I expect elite quarterbacks. I say this every year. The elite quarterbacks in this league will win you 8 games. All right? The mediocre quarterbacks will win you about 6 games. The poor ones, they're going to win you about 2 games. So Tom Brady, Aaron Rodgers, they're going to be around 8 games no matter what. Now, if they can keep the team healthy. So Baker Mayfield is set up, though. His defense can win him a couple games, all right? And I believe that that is an advantage over Patty Mahomes, even though they have played at a higher level.
Right, so this is, to me, really interesting because I think these are the 2 best groups of skill position players in the AFC. I think if you look at Odell, Jarvis, Njoku, Chubb, Kareem Hunt, the running back duo they will have by the end of the year, that is elite. Maybe only outshined by Tyreek Hill, Sammy Watkins, Travis Kelce, Damian Williams. The Browns have the better running back core. I think the Chiefs have the better wide receiver tight end combo, but it's the 2 best in the AFC. Where the Browns, to me, have a clear edge is on the defensive side of the ball. I know the Chiefs brought in Frank Clark. I know they brought in Tyrann Mathieu. Neither one of those guys plays corner, and the Chiefs had the worst cornerback situation in football last year. Will it be better this year with Kendall Fuller, with Travarius Ward, with Rashad Breeland? It won't be worse, but they don't have anyone like Denzel Ward. They might not have anyone like Greedy Williams, a guy who I thought might have been a top 15 pick they got in the 2nd round. So the Browns have the defensive edge. But as clear as the Browns have a defensive edge, the Chiefs have a coaching edge. And that's not an indictment on Freddie Kitchens, but Andy Reid has proven time and time again he's one of the 5 best coaches in football. His clock management issues notwithstanding.
Outside of Belichick and Sean Payton, if we were doing a tale of the tape, every game he would have a coaching advantage out of respect.
And so Freddie Kitchens is a huge unknown. Andy Reid, good and bad to a degree, is a known quantity. And so I think that this is, you can make a strong case for either side. The Browns defense, to me, is positioned to be a top 5 defense in this league if it hits right. The Chiefs are just trying to be a top half defense in the league if that hits right. That helps Baker so much. I'd also argue he's in an easier division. I don't think there's a team in the AFC North as good as the Chargers are that he has to contend with. So I think all those things speak in Baker's favor. But either way, to me, this is the next great quarterback rivalry. This is going to be our generation's Manning-Brady. These 2 guys, similar age, similar trajectory, similar weapons to go duel it out over the next 10 years.
Which I agree with wholeheartedly. But I see 2 teams. One went out and proved themselves to the highest of high levels. And the other one is a fantastic team on paper. I mean, gold embossed paper, beautiful resume, thick construction paper, but it is still just paper. You still feel like they're sort of even matched, at least as far as offensively and defensively, because one cancels the other one out?
Well, you have to build the house with something. And I'd like to start with a strong resume. I'd like to start with a good education. Now, will someone come in and be able to, you know something, I didn't go to college? Yes. Or I wasn't successful in college? Yes. But those are the one-offs. Typically, you are going to get the best by, I'm going to get in this draft and get the most talented young players that I can get. And that's what Freddie Kitchens and that's what Dorsey, the general manager in Cleveland, yes, that's what they've done. But what was Patty Mahomes before we last season? He's just on paper. He's just look.
But he's also an anomaly. We haven't seen someone like Patty Mahomes in years.
Correct.
This is the one thing that I do believe in. Cleveland's offensive line is underrated. Cleveland's ability to be able to run the ball was underrated. Baker Mayfield's ability to be able to lead people, I believe, is on an elite, special level. Odell Beckham is a special football player, and I believe that with his former college coach in Henry, his former college teammate in Jarvis Landry, that will bring out the best in him. So, yes, I'm going to always start with talent. And I'm going to leave it open for, Freddie Kitchen played quarterback at University of Alabama. And then he's an offensive line coach. They promote him to offensive coordinator. That's not necessarily the resume that I want, but I do believe that he can get the job done.
All right, let's take a break. Coming up, our friend Isaiah Thomas is back to discuss, among other things, whether Russ and Harden can coexist. Who's better on the NBA's all-time? Do you want to get into that?
No,
Probably
but I am
not.
curious,
All right,
is the font
Me
embossed?
and you are going to get into it.
Are the
font
letters
not
raised?
embossed?
I'm just asking.
Yeah, the
On
font.
this,
Isn't
yeah.
the font embossed?
Absolutely, Jen, on this hard construction paper.
We are back here with Hall of Famer Isaiah Thomas, smart man we've got here. We're talking James Harden. Harden recently reunited with his buddy Russell Westbrook in Houston. There's been a lot of talk around the league how these two will fit with each other. However, no one had publicly heard from Harden until now. Take a listen.
When you have talent like that, it works itself out. You know, you don't. It's no. You know, you communicate and you go out there and you compete, and possession by possession, you figure things out. Throughout the course of the season, you figure things out, and that's just what it is. You know. But when you have talent, you have guys with IQ. You got guys that are willing to sacrifice. It always works itself out.
In a nutshell, from James Harden, if you have talent, it all sort of just works itself out, which sounds a lot better. I don't think it always works that way. But what did you make of what Harden had to say?
Well, great talent respects great talent. So when a great talented player walks through the door, you respect. When Randy Moss walked through the door, you saw the talent. You was like, I respect it. Now let me show you how to route run.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
That's true.
And once they figure that out, when great talent walks through, you automatically respect it. Now, what great talent has a problem with is the lesser talented player, where I may have to give you the ball. Nah, I can keep it myself. Harden is going to look at Westbrook and say, I don't mind giving it to you because I know you can do A, B, C, D, and E. Westbrook, and we forget, has led the league in assists. Everybody's talking about him being a selfish player, but remember, he was heralded as the guy who's been getting triple-doubles. So he don't mind giving it up. So he's not going to have a problem giving it up to Harden. I think these two will be the modern-day Frazier Monroe. Remember, and you may be too young, Nick, but when Earl Monroe was getting talked about traded to the New York Knicks, there were some questions, could Frazier and Monroe work out?
Yep.
Well, we saw what they were able to do together. I look at Westbrook and I look at Harden. Right now, they are the modern-day Frazier Monroe in terms of the way they play. And you got to remember, when Westbrook was playing in OKC, every time he went down the lane, Steven Adams was there. There was a big guy in the lane that was clogging stuff up. Kendrick Perkins was in there, right?
Mm-hmm.
Now,
Andre Roberson's defender was in there because they didn't have to guard him.
Now Westbrook, who's going to stop him from getting to the basket?
Well, so to me, that's the best case scenario for Houston, and that is the part that I don't think's been discussed enough, which is Russell Westbrook, when he has been surrounded by shooters, which has been rare in OKC.
Yep.
When they had one big man on the court and they ran a spread pick and roll. Russ, a big man, 3 shooters.
Yep.
That was a nearly unguardable play in this league because even if you go under the screen, Russ is so fast, he can still beat you. And if you switch, you're sunk. And so he couldn't do that in OKC because as good as Sam Presti has been in spots, I don't know that he surrounded Russ with the ideal roster around him. Did what he could, but they never had great shooting. Even when Durant was there, they never had great shooting ever since they moved off Harden. So that, to me, will be a great play when Harden's to the bench. We know what Houston can do when Russ is not out there, when it's Harden running the show. When the questions people have is, when they're on the court together and James Harden has the ball, in that spot, how does Russ positively affect the team when he's not a shooting threat and when he's used to being the one dribbling, controlling the offense?
Dude, when Russ and Harden are out on the floor together, this is how Russ's man gonna be. You, Harden, you got the ball. Russ's man gonna be saying, all right, I ain't leaving you.
Right, respect,
yeah. I mean, they're not gonna leave him. So Harden's gonna have free reign. Russ is gonna have free reign. And then you got to remember, they got Eric Gordon, who will be out there, PJ, Capella. I mean, Houston is loaded. Not only are they loaded, but they've had their heartbreaks, right? So their heartbreaks over the last 2 years have been devastating. And we know Harden, always in the playoffs, you can count on him missing one game, he's not showing up, right? Just not going to show up. Well, now you got Russ, who's always there. So I just think they're going to be dynamic, and I think they're going to be very difficult to guard. And I think if I'm picking today, they are my early favorite to come out of the West.
Wow.
Now, listen.
Wow.
I'm gonna tell you,
I like it.
Yeah, if I'm picking today, they my early favorite to come out of the West.
Okay, now I'm going to listen to you because ever since a young age, you've been teaching me about basketball. When my brother Butch, him and Isaiah were teammates, he was trying to describe my game to Isaiah, and he was telling me.
I watched him the other day make them 2 free throws against Ohio State again. I rewatched that game. I swear to God. And he went to the line. You talking about pressure. Butch straight net on both of them and act like it wasn't none.
Butch's brother went to, Chris's brother Butch went to IU.
But go ahead, I digress.
So Isaiah's been knowing me since I was a kid. And Butch used to tell about, man, Chris is not going to pass the ball. And Isaiah looked Butch straight in the eye and said, let's leave this boy alone. I got him. And he looked at me and said, you don't pass unless they're better than you. When you get to the level and they as good as you or better than you, you've worked on your game, don't pass to them unless they're better or at least as good as you. And I always tell people that. Isaiah Thomas, that's my Isaiah Thomas rule. Now, you also mentioned about Randy Moss. That was true. I had a lot of respect for the kid. I also felt an obligation to the game that the game was going to be blessed if this kid fulfilled his potential. But when Dennis Green started putting Randy Moss in my position in the offense, and he started letting Randy know, listen, we can dictate the coverage. I'm going to show you the secret recipe to how we've been making this guy so good. Didn't like that one so much.
Yeah.
So Harden, former MVP. Harden is trying to get postseason success. He don't need Russ, all right now in his career. I didn't need Randy Moss. It was up to the coaches to find a system, and it worked for about 3.5 years.
Right.
3.5 years, that's when they started putting him in my spot, and I wasn't happy. Do you believe in the coaching staff that they can put them in a situation that they can play that type of basketball? Because to me, I don't doubt their ability.
Yeah.
I doubt the scheme and the intellect of the coach to be versatile enough, and he hasn't shown that throughout his career.
Well, that's the $1 million question. Will D'Antoni be? He has enough basketball knowledge and enough versatility from a coaching standpoint to draw from different playbooks, right? And he understands how to do that. But he has been stubborn in wanting to win his way with his style and prove that it can work. Now, he's had many chances to do it in many different places. And he's always had teams that complement his coaching style. Now, does he want to win or does he want to win his way? And that will be the question with the Rockets.
There's one other question for the Rockets, because I think that everyone acknowledges, even if Russ is flawed, 30-year-old Russell Westbrook is right now a better NBA player than 34-year-old Chris Paul. The Rockets got more talent, but I don't know that they got better defensively. Chris Paul, even at 34 years old, still not what he was defensively, still a very good defender.
Yeah.
Russ has found himself wanting on that end of the court for quite some time. One part of Russ's defense, though, that I feel like goes underrated, and I've been waiting to ask you about this, is when you play the relentless style of offense that he does. You were a great defender, and you're right, but take that part out of it. How much was your defense improved by the fact that the guy you had to guard was exhausted from having to guard you? And that's the part for Houston. Like, playing Russ, as Zach Lowe put it, is a chore. It's just a pain. Like, he's going to constantly be going at you. How much does a player like that sap the other players' offensive ability because of the energy they're draining guarding him?
So it's just the reverse. So I wanted to play against that guy who was all offense, because once that guy who was all offense met resistance defensively, then I wore him down. Now, it's harder to defend. That takes offense away from you when you're resisting and you stopping people. Now, to be the great two-way player like Kawhi is, that's why there are very few great two-way players that have ever played all game. Jordan was a great two-way player, okay? Kawhi's a great two-way player. LeBron, when he wants to be, is a great two-way player. The ability to play offensively and defensively, that exhausts you. Now, when defense meets great offense, defense normally wins, okay? The myth is offense always wins. A challenge shot is made 22% of the time. So if I can stay with you and challenge, left-hand challenge, right-hand shooter, okay, the great players make maybe 35, 38% of those shots, right? But the great players always find a way to be open. Like we look at Steph Curry and Klay Thompson, them guys are always open. Very rarely are they taking tough challenge shots, okay? So my point is, when on the defensive side, I wanted to play against those guys who were always offense because I can take it away from them.
Lessons by Isaiah. I
great.
forgot where I was for a second. I thought I was just listening to a podcast. I was just enjoying myself. Almost kicked my shoes off.
It's better listening to it than watching it.
Isaiah, thank you so much for joining us today.
You are welcome.
Always
You're
great
welcome.
insight. Coming up.
Thank you.
24th greatest player in the history of basketball, right here.
Already
He's lying. I'm a little better than that.
Back here with Cris Canty. Let's get to the latest now from Tyreek Hill. The Chiefs receiver will rejoin the team. This after the NFL determined he will not be disciplined or suspended following an investigation into allegations of child abuse. The NFL saying he did not violate the league's personal conduct policy. His teammate, Travis Kelce, said, "We're just happy to get our guy back." Kenny, whether or not you agree with the NFL's decision, Tyreek Hill is indeed back. Does this now put the Chiefs on track for a Super Bowl run?
Well, I think you have to say it does because this was a team that was in the AFC Championship game last year, and they lost to the eventual Super Bowl champion New England Patriots. So, yeah, they're right there in the mix. They still have that same core of skill position players, and they have the reigning MVP in Pat Mahomes. So they're right there. But as far as the NFL's decision goes not to suspend Tyreek Hill, I think they were clear on their position that they didn't have enough evidence in their investigation to definitively make a decision on whether or not this case warranted discipline toward Tyreek Hill. And the one thing that we've got to stop doing, fans, media, we've got to stop looking to the NFL to administer justice in these types of situations. You have to leave that to law enforcement, and in this case, the Johnson County District Attorney. If they didn't have enough evidence to file charges on the child abuse side of things, then the NFL clearly wouldn't be in a position to do that because the NFL is not as qualified as those individuals. Now, as far as the complete picture, there was something there for the NFL to discipline Tyreek Hill on, and that was the audio and listening to him talk to the mother of the child and the language that he used and the threatening manner in which he spoke to her. I mean, psychological and emotional abuse are real things, and this is not this couple's first issue with domestic violence or the threat of violence. So I think that the NFL should have looked at this situation and said, you know what, with the child abuse situation, we don't have enough evidence for that. But we do have enough evidence for what Tyreek Hill said to his baby mother.
Well, listen, I agree with most of what you said there, and I'll get to the football part in a second. But where I disagree with you is where you say we have to stop looking to the NFL to adjudicate these things. We aren't looking for the NFL to do this as much as the NFL has raised its hand and said, we want to do this. Like, this was something when Commissioner Goodell came to power, he thought it was important. They have a much more stringent personal conduct policy than under Paul Tagliabue. A few years into his tenure, I think in 2012, he was on the cover of Time magazine as the enforcer, and this is something that he signed up for. And then after the Ray Rice debacle, they then decided we are going to have within the personal conduct policy folded in a domestic violence policy. And what the league is discovering is that, unfortunately, domestic violence is incredibly difficult to adjudicate. Our criminal justice system has enormous problems determining, I don't want to say right and wrong, but determining whether or not something occurred, having parties on the same page. It is not a black and white issue, even if it should be. What is so disappointing about this one specifically is if you just remove the allegations about the child, because we don't know. Everyone can have their own speculation. We don't know how that child broke his arm. We do know exactly what your point was. Tyreek Hill threatened Crystal Espinal on recorded conversation. He does not dispute that. His lawyer does not dispute that. And the NFL has in black and white writing that you can be suspended without physical violence.
Because that in and of itself violates the personal conduct
Jimmy
policy.
Smith was just suspended 4 games for what they called a pattern of emotional and verbal abuse. So there is a precedent there. This is where that is the most disappointing part to me is that was There aren't many ones that are, I don't want to say easy, but this simple. It's on recorded conversation. He does not dispute that that was him. She does not dispute that that was him. And you have the added part of this is a couple that 5 years ago he pled guilty in court to abusing her, to strangling her and punching her. Now, he might deny that now, but he pled guilty to it. And so I was really surprised he didn't get a couple of games.
Sure.
Not that that's the bigger issue here, but for that and that alone, even if you don't determine guilt on who broke his son's arm.
Well, just to push back, I think your premise is a little bit off because in the wake of the Ray Rice incident back in 2014, I think that Roger Goodell was forced in that position after he bungled that particular situation. You had a lot of groups, special interests coming out and saying that Roger Goodell should no longer be allowed to be commissioner of the National Football League and that this league needs to elevate their standard in terms of how they treat women. They had to change their perception. And I think that's why he rolled out that personal conduct policy. But Roger Goodell didn't want to stand up and say, this is the issue that I'm going to be known for as a commissioner. That wasn't it. He did want to be the law and order commissioner, but this is just something that he didn't anticipate happening and becoming such a hot button topic. So I don't think that Roger Goodell in the NFL stood up and said, we want to be at the forefront of this. They might have publicly said that, but I think that they were backed into a corner into that position because of how poorly they handled Ray Rice.
Yeah, I'm with Jenna as far as something should have been done, as far as the words that were said, based on the history. When you come into the league with that type of mark on you, that type of incident should have warranted some type of suspension for him, what he did to his fiance or his future wife. Now, from a football standpoint, they are special. Patty Mahomes and Tyreek Hill are special in a number of different ways, but the way they throw the ball deep down the field, I'm talking about the ball traveling more than 20 yards. This is an old part of the NFL that Andy Reid has brought back because he's got a great quarterback who's got a great live arm in Tyreek Hill because of his speed and because he's been able to learn a number of routes outside the numbers in the slot that typically speed guys, they don't run that type of route tree. Their ability to be able to make completions deep down the field, 41 times last year they threw the ball over 20 yards, 18 of those being completions. Also, 6 of those, I think, went for touchdowns, but 5 of those are intercepted. Is Patty Mahomes in this year going to force the ball? Because when you have success in this league, it tends to generate a lot of confidence. And Brett Favre said it. One of the things that I would say Brett Favre is different than Patty Mahomes and different than Baker, Brett Favre throws some interceptions. He's going to throw that ball in the traffic. And the difference between Patty Mahomes and some of these other quarterbacks is keeping those interceptions down. And then this year, with all those expectations on that offense, can he do that? That's going to be a huge question this year.
All right, well, in not suspending Tyreek Hill, we now talk about this as a football issue moving forward to see what the team is going to do with Tyreek Hill and how he helps the rest of the team. Chris?
The one thing I will say about not suspending Tyreek Hill, we've seen Roger Goodell suspend players with less evidence. I just find the timing of this to be a little bit curious. Ezekiel Elliott, we saw that last year, but then not suspending Ezekiel Elliott based on what he did this offseason and not suspending Tyreek Hill. Just saying, maybe Roger Goodell is concerned about the perception amongst players about how he handles the power that was given to him by the owner.
And I don't think anyone would have been upset or surprised had he been suspended for a few games. Thank you for listening to the First Things First podcast. Remember, leave us a review and tell us what you think. Subscribe to the podcast on Apple Podcasts and catch us on FS1 Monday through Friday, 6:30 a.m. Eastern. For Cris Carter and Nick Wright, I'm Jenna Wolfe. So long, everybody.